Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Today we have ourselves quite a show, as we have a lot to get into in the world of Southern California sports, such as the NCAA men's and women's basketball tournaments. They have giveth and they have taketh. Does SoCal still have a team representing in the men's and women's basketball tournaments? Also, the Lakers unfortunately saw their win streak come to an end against those pesky Indiana Pacers. Can they still make the playoffs, and can they get back on track? And the Clippers are in a little bit of an identity crisis. They've been up and down. They take on the Charlotte Hornets today. Are the Clippers in any trouble, or is this just a passing phase? Also, the Dodgers and Padres have series this week, and the Angels open up the season against the Baltimore Orioles. Did they do pretty good, or is this going to be a long season for those Halos? All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Sunday wherever you are listening from. Either way, if you have made your way into episode 174 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show would not be live without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on several different social media platforms such as Twitter, now known as X, TikTok, and Instagram at IE Sports Radio. Also, we have a Facebook page for those that still use Facebook. All you just have to do is type in the word IE Sports and Radio, and then like us, and then that's how you're able to follow us on Facebook. And we also have a website, iesportsradio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our pages dedicated to each podcast, such as this one, our community forum, and our merchandise shop. For the last 9 years, going on 10 years, within about a month and a half, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports days around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout to our sponsors, Plant Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Plant Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, it's low in sugar, and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and all you have to do is visit www.plantjerky.net and place your order. In addition, prices are slashed for the time being, and if you buy an order's worth of $50 or more, you get the shipping for free! Once again, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Plant Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. Our second sponsor is Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch. Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or friend and you just want to add their smile when they receive it. If that's the case, then Seal the Deal Wax Seal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts is just for you. You bring the deal, and we'll bring the seal. That's their motto. Follow them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps. And the way you can follow the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at SoCal Show ISR. And I, Teran Rodriguez, am on X, formerly known as Twitter as well, at Teran Rodriguez 1. And without any further delay, let's begin. As Marcus Less Great pops into the chat room, he says salute. And Mike Pat also pops into the chat room. He says, good evening, Teran. How about those B-ball, or how those B-ball teams doing? Well, we're actually going to get right into that as NCAA March Madness is here, even though March is officially done. So we'll start off with NCAA men's basketball just because, well, there was only two teams representing in terms of Southern California, Long Beach State and San Diego State. And let's just say for Long Beach State, I don't know if I talked about this on last week's show, it was kind of to be expected when it came to them. By the way, I know y'all are probably wondering why am I live on Sunday and on Easter for that matter. First and foremost, happy Easter to everyone that celebrates. Second and foremost, well, I have been very busy. I wanted to go live yesterday, but I had to attend the UC Irvine Cal State Northridge men's volleyball match at UC Irvine, so I couldn't go live there. And then I also had a PA announce on Friday, just because I need to get my money and whatnot. So, yeah, this is going to be, I hate to say this, but this might be a little tricky for me to do the SoCal Supreme Sports Show with all the volleyball going on and with me working at the grocery store and all that sort of thing. So y'all are going to have to bear with me when it comes to my schedule with the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And Marcus says you need to move to Sundays, LOL. Well, that's probably going to be the case. However, my schedule at my job at Pavilions is very finicky. Sometimes I could be working Sundays, sometimes I won't be working Sundays, so we'll have to see what happens. And maybe I might move SoCal to Thursdays, but that's Law and Order night, so I digress on that last part, though. Anyway, so back to NCAA men's basketball. Long Beach State basically they got bounced by Arizona. This was kind of to be expected. I will give Long Beach State the benefit of the doubt. They played their tails out. Unfortunately, they kind of got worn down, and sadly, they wound up running out of gas, and they sadly lost to Arizona 85-65. And with them losing, Dan Monson's coaching tenure at Long Beach State has come to an end, which is unfortunate because as a Long Beach State alum, I really hate how Long Beach State gave him his pink slip before the tournament, whereas if they had fired him after the NCAA tournament or after Long Beach State's season was officially done, that would be more understandable. You all basically know the whole story. I gave Long Beach State and its athletic department, well, the one who made the decision of firing Dan Monson, Dum Dum of the Week last time I did this show. So, I mean, the whole athletic department isn't Dum Dum of the Week, or wasn't Dum Dum of the Week, but whoever made the decision of basically letting go Dan Monson is Dum Dum of the Week. But Long Beach State was led by Abubakar Traore, who had 14 points. Long story short, when it comes to this matchup, Long Beach State didn't really have a boxer's chance. They only made 3 threes compared to Arizona's 13. They shot 33% from the field, where Arizona shot 41.7% from the field. So all in all, and the sad thing is that even though Long Beach State got even though they got 12 points from A.J. George off the bench, and they also got 14 points from Amari Stroud, Long Beach State wasn't winning this one, just because Arizona is on a whole other level, and they come from the ever-so-talented Pac-12, formerly known as the Pac-12. But, yeah, Long Beach State just could not keep up with Arizona. It also didn't help that the refs kind of gave a few of the calls to Arizona. So, it was a tough end for Long Beach State. This was kind of expected, though. But I will say this about Long Beach State. At least they made the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately for some of the other teams in Southern California, they didn't make the tournament. Like UC Irvine. And this is no knock against some of those teams, but UC Irvine didn't make the NCAA tournament. USC and UCLA didn't make the NCAA tournament, considering they didn't have winning records, and no at-large is getting in to the NCAA tournament with a losing record. So, I will say this for Long Beach State. It's a tough way to go out, but as I've said on X, formerly known as Twitter, via the SoCal Supreme Sports Show Twitter account, they are the only SoCal team to get into the NCAA tournament as an automatic qualifier. There was actually a Colorado State fan who said, I guess San Diego State doesn't count or doesn't apply. Well, San Diego State did make the NCAA tournament, but they had to get in as an at-large. There's a massive difference between getting in as an at-large and getting in as an automatic qualifier. Getting in as an automatic qualifier, you win your conference tournament. Getting in as an at-large, you lose in your conference tournament, and then you got to hope that the committee puts you in. So there you have it. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk regarding that, and I hope that clarifies everything, especially for that one Colorado State fan. Anyway, so SoCal Supreme Sports Show salute to Long Beach State on a great season. Was it a briefed one? Yes, but hopefully for Long Beach State's sake, they're able to hire someone who definitely can take the reins from Dan Monson, and hopefully for Dan Monson, he does find more work, and he is a great coach. I do like him. Unfortunately, he just has had rotten luck. But according to what I've heard, athletic director Bobby Smitherin's ties to San Diego State, San Diego State assistant coach Chris Acker could possibly be the new head coach at Long Beach State in terms of their men's volleyball program. This was first reported by John Rothstein, and it came 1 week after Long Beach State wound up losing to Arizona. So, I mean, an assistant for San Diego State, San Diego State does have a consistent program, and honestly, they definitely are a great team. I definitely think, they're not like of the blue-collar caliber, like maybe UConn or I don't want to say Alabama, maybe Purdue, maybe Marquette, even though they wound up losing. Long story short, San Diego State isn't really a blue-collar or blue-chip program, but they're consistent. I think of all the Southern California teams, San Diego State is the most consistent. UCLA, but this was the first year in the Mick Cronin era that they didn't make the NCAA tournament. And then USC, I got to get to them momentarily. I'm getting to them momentarily. So that is that for Long Beach State in terms of men's basketball and whatnot. So we'll see what happens with Long Beach State, but oh well. As for San Diego State, so I will just say for San Diego State, I had a feeling they were going to get in, and they kicked off the NCAA tournament by beating UAB 69-65. Now, I knew San Diego State was going to win, but I had a feeling this one was going to be a lot trickier than it needed to be, as Jadon Ledee led San Diego State with 32 points. The dude almost had half of San Diego State's overall points. That's nuts if you ask me. And the interesting thing is for San Diego State is that they only made 5 threes compared to UAB's 7. And then as for the field altogether, San Diego State shot 43.6%, which is pretty good. And it's a good thing for San Diego State. They only missed 4 free throws. UAB missed 6, and they wound up losing by 4. So, all in all, I knew San Diego State was going to win that one. Their next opponent, however, was a rather interesting one. They played Yale, who upset Auburn, and I feel bad for Auburn. I actually picked Auburn to go to the next round, but Yale had other plans. And unfortunately for Yale, they kind of got introduced to angry San Diego State. Long story short, San Diego State smacked the you-know-what out of Yale in the second round. They wound up winning 85-57. Now, I will give Yale the benefit of the doubt. I don't think anyone predicted them to getting past round 1. Like I said, I picked Auburn. I thought San Diego State was going to play Auburn in the second round, and I think that would have been a marquee matchup right there. But unfortunately for Yale, they ran into a buzzsaw in the Aztecs as Jadon Ledee led San Diego State with 26 points. San Diego State also made 13 three-pointers. They shot over 50% from the field. They got 18 points from Darian Trammell, who was one of the heroes for San Diego State last year in their national championship title, or national championship appearance run. So, yeah, this was kind of to be expected. I didn't think San Diego State was going to win by 28. But, yeah, I knew San Diego State was going to get past the second round. So they made it all the way to the Sweet 16. But unfortunately, they faced another dog team. They faced a team that was quite familiar to their program, and that was UConn. So I basically expected this was going to be an uphill climb for San Diego State. I will give San Diego State the benefit of the doubt, and I am using that term very much this show. I will give San Diego State this. They actually led against UConn. Yeah, can you believe it? San Diego State actually led against UConn, which is more than I could say for last year's national championship matchup. They led 2 different times. They actually led 2-0. Woohoo! And they also led 10-9. That's kind of where the buck stopped with San Diego State, because after they trailed by 4, they never got any closer to within. They got no closer than 1 point, as UConn hit the gas and left San Diego State in the dust, beating the Aztecs 82-52. Now, again, UConn is the reigning champion, and they are a machine. There's a reason why they're the number 1 overall seed, but the fact that we got a rematch of last year's national championship match is actually pretty good, if you ask me. And I will say this, San Diego State, I want to say, is probably the team that is one of the few teams that has led UConn in the NCAA tournament. I mean, Illinois also led in their matchup before the 30-0 run for UConn in the Elite Eight. But, hey, San Diego State came in with nothing left to lose. So they basically threw everything they had at UConn, but unfortunately, UConn just woke up. They poked the dog, and the dog was doing bad things, and unfortunately that dog wound up taking down San Diego State. So it is unfortunate that San Diego State's men's basketball team lost, but I will just say for San Diego State men's hoops, it was still a great run. I mean, Sweet 16 isn't as great as the Final Four, obviously, but I will also just say everyone thought that San Diego State men's basketball was going to have a massive hangover from last year. Everyone thought, they lose too many players. They're not going to make it back. Well, did you forget who San Diego State men's basketball actually is? They're actually pretty dang consistent, if you ask me. Yeah, and yes, they had the really bad last week in the Mountain West Conference, but they made it all the way to the Mountain West Conference Championship, only to lose to New Mexico. And I want to say San Diego State got further in terms of all of the teams in the Mountain West Conference. I mean, they were for sure the team that got furthest of all the Southern California teams, considering there were only 2. But San Diego State, I think, got further than every other team in the Mountain West Conference, which actually says quite a bit for everyone else. I mean, Utah State lost in the second round, which San Diego State didn't. Nevada lost in the first round to Dayton. Okay. Boise State wound up losing in the first 4 matchup to Colorado. Ooh, boy. UNLV, they made the NIT. I shouldn't laugh at that just because UNLV beat San Diego State. And then New Mexico, they wound up getting hammered by Clemson in the first round. So, and then Colorado State wound up losing in the first round to Texas after winning their first 4 matchup against lowly Virginia. I'm not going to get into that matchup. But yeah, San Diego State, of all the Mountain West Conference teams, made it the furthest in the NCAA tournament. So you can't say that San Diego State isn't consistent. Now, I will just also say this. Brian Dutcher is a fantastic coach, and he is the type of coach that turns lemons to lemonade. And that lemonade is pretty dang good, if you ask me. So there you have it right there. Now, I actually do, on the topic of San Diego State men's basketball, I actually do want to go over something that I like to discuss something. So one of my buddies, said on X, formerly known as Twitter, everyone is giving constant love to Gonzaga and their consistency, rightfully so. But the lack of respect to San Diego State still gets is pretty wild. The COVID year, they could have won it all if the tourney wasn't canceled. San Diego State is one of the best and consistent programs now. And I rightfully agree with that. And I even said they're very likable and they have a little underdog mentality to them. If it weren't for UCLA and USC, San Diego State would be the most talked about They would be the most talked about in SoCal regarding college hoops and could probably be the best Division I college basketball team from Southern California. And I even said Brian Dutcher is such a great coach. Now, here's the thing. Notice how I said the word is probably the best Division I team. What I failed to mention was you got to look at it historically because UCLA has a lot of history and USC had so many expectations. I got a couple of San Diego State fans probably that basically mentioned some... Well, okay, one wasn't really a San Diego State fan, but he said not probably is, referencing what I said as San Diego State would probably be the best Division I team in Southern California, which, considering this season that USC and UCLA had, San Diego State takes the top crown. And then there was the other San Diego State fan. He said, it'd be a wild take to claim UCLA or USC is a better college hoops program at present. Now, that is what I'm referring to. At present time, San Diego State is the best Division I program of all the Southern California teams. But if we're talking about historically, you got to give that nod to UCLA. Let's face it. As much as I like San Diego State, you got to give the nod to UCLA and what it's done in the past. And this Viva La Aztec said, I guess if a casual is just looking at names on a jersey, recruiting stars, or conference affiliation, sure. But everything else, the stuff that matters, speaks for itself. And honestly, yeah, I totally agree with that. If we're referring to the past and all sorts of history, UCLA would probably be the top dog. They obviously just had a bad year. And then USC, they had so much expectations. I definitely think no one predicted USC to having such a bad year and then Isaiah Collier getting hurt and missing like 4 weeks and USC just going on that massive slip and slide in the Pac-12 conference. And then eventually finding their footing and beating Arizona, which they eventually lost in the Pac-12 tournament. But all in all, I will say, yeah, San Diego State is a consistent program. They're so likable. They're not in the news for some negative, they're mostly in the news for like positive reasons and not negative reasons. And honestly, Brian Dutcher is a great coach. He's not that coach that's in the limelight or saying something that gets him like questioned or whatnot. And he's not a dick face. I probably shouldn't have said that. But he's not a dick face like Dan Hurley was. As if you remember Dan Hurley in his post-game press conference from last year when UConn wound up beating San Diego State, he never gave one prop of, hey, San Diego State is a fantastic team. He just talked about how good UConn was, and he basically didn't make any note and give out good shout-outs to San Diego State, which I thought was pretty bad. And everyone and their mamas hates Dan Hurley, unless you're a UConn fan or an Arizona State fan. But anyway, for San Diego State, it was a fantastic season, and yes, it ended in the Sweet 16 as opposed to ending it in the national championship last year. But it was going to be tough to top last year's performance, especially with the likes of UConn running around, and then the emergence of Alabama, Purdue managing to get to the Final Four. You all get the point. So honestly, for San Diego State, this season can be deemed as a success. As Adam Karnick pops in the chat room, he says, Happy Easter, Teran. Happy Easter to you too, Adam. And I hope you're having a great rest of the day. So there you have it right there when it comes to college men's hoops in Southern California. Now, on the women's side, okay. On the women's side of things, it's a little bit more, there was more representation. We had USC and UCLA making the NCAA tournament, and they were nationally seeded. You also had CBU, or California Baptist, in the NCAA tournament. And yes, it's California Baptist, not Cal Baptist, California Baptist. That's the correct vernacular. And then you also had UC Irvine representing the Big West, which is definitely good. But as for UC Irvine and CBU, they unfortunately saw their season come to an end in the opening round. UC Irvine got hammered by Gonzaga 75-56. Believe it or not, UC Irvine actually led by 7 at the end of the first quarter. So I'm not going to lie, they kind of had Gonzaga in the first quarter. I ain't going to lie. It's just that the second quarter, Gonzaga kind of woke up because they're the Bulldogs, and when you wake up a Bulldog, you're dead, Jim. And basically, Gonzaga was not in any danger the rest of the way. I mean, at halftime, Gonzaga was only up 3. I'm sorry, they were up 5, but that was only because UC Irvine was still in the game. Unfortunately, they just had no answer in the third quarter, and then they just could not keep up with Gonzaga. But it was still a great season for UC Irvine. I mean, they finished second in the Big West Conference regular season in the Big West Conference regular season, and then they won the Big West Conference Tournament Championship. I mean, Hawaii fans are nothing against Hawaii basketball fans, women's basketball fans, but Hawaii fans are probably going to say, oh, if they had played Hawaii instead of UC Davis, they wouldn't have made it. Well, you should have won your matchup against UC Davis in the semifinals of the Big West Conference Tournament. So, should have, would have, could have. So that was that for UC Irvine women's hoops. And then as for CBU, they actually had the dishonor of playing UCLA in the first round. And let's just say UCLA kind of introduced CBU to the NCAA tournament in a very, very tough way. As UCLA welcomed California Baptist with open arms, except not really. They wound up crushing CBU 84-55. Which, again, that was kind of expected. I also don't agree with CBU's seeding. Like, how do you get a 15 seed if you've only lost 3 games, with 2 of which coming in overtime? I just don't get it. And you have 28 wins to boot, and you won your conference tournament, albeit it did come down to the wire. I get it, the WAC, or the Western Athletic Conference, isn't the most competitive like the Pac-12, but still, CBU deserves some sort of... They deserve a little bit better of a seeding. They don't deserve 15 seed. And that kind of makes me wonder, why did UC Irvine get a higher seed than CBU? They got a 13 seed, which I'll never understand why. I mean, at the very least, CBU didn't really have to leave the state, but they just had to go down the freeway and to Pauley Pavilion. It's just unfortunate that CBU wound up losing in the first round, but hey, it is what it is. I mean, unfortunately, that's the life of being a mid-major conference team, aka a team that's not in a Power 5 conference. So, it was still a great season for CBU. I mean, it just sucks that they got such a tough draw, but it is what it is, and I'm glad that this was their first ever NCAA women's basketball tournament appearance. Remember, they were still in the transition rule of Division 1 or Division 2 to Division 1, and they unfortunately could not partake in the NCAA tournament the year they went undefeated and then wound up losing in the NIT quarterfinals. But for CBU, I'm happy that they made the NCAA tournament, and here's hoping that they can continue to make the NCAA tournament. And as Daryl Trujillo and I basically made note of 2 weeks ago, I think it's safe to say to call CBU Women's Hoops the third best team in Southern California in terms of Division I college hoops in women's basketball. I mean, obviously UCLA and USC rule the Southern California Division I women's basketball hierarchy with an iron fist, but CBU is not too far back. Like I've been mentioning, if it wasn't for UCLA and USC getting all the top recruits, CBU could look like a nice little place to go to and commit to when it comes to college women's Division I basketball. Are they a mid-major? Yes. However, look at the people for those that are standouts in Southern California, they would have to leave home, which is where they've grown up and thrived on. But it is what it is, and CBU women's hoops got dismissed in the first round. I mean, they would have had to play perfect to take down UCLA. And that's a perfect segue to go into UCLA women's hoops. So UCLA, as we all know, they stomped all over CBU. They managed to edge past Creighton in the second round, 67-63. Now, that one was kind of down to the wire, but Creighton kind of shot itself in the foot by not shooting the ball sooner rather than later. As the Bruins, not to my surprise, made it all the way to the Sweet 16. And as for USC, I can't forget about USC. They opened up the NCAA tournament with a strong 87-55 win over Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And then the second round, USC walked all over. Okay, I wouldn't say walked all over, just because this game was actually closer than expected. Kansas was actually in this matchup for the thick of it. They didn't go away until the fourth quarter, where they only put up a whopping 9 points to USC's 20. But USC wound up beating Kansas 73-55, advancing to the Sweet 16. So the Sweet 16 was actually yesterday, where USC took on Baylor, and then UCLA took on LSU, which I'm glad to see they were representing Southern California well. Unfortunately for UCLA, they ran into the buzzsaw that was LSU, last year's national champion, and they wound up losing 78-69 in Albany. Now, obviously this is a tough pill to swallow, but for those that actually did not know, UCLA actually got into Albany, or I think it's pronounced Albany. They got into Albany at 11:45 Eastern Time. They got out to Albany, New York at 11:45 Eastern Time, and they barely got enough sleep. And they had to be on the court for warm-ups at like 8:40-ish. Do you see? And you're probably wondering, well, why is that? Why did they get into the airport in Albany at 11:45? Well, their plane actually had to make a stop to refuel on gas or motor and whatnot. And that's just such an inconvenience for UCLA's women's basketball team. I'm sorry, but that's just not fair. And for UCLA to not have a whole lot of rest and whatnot, and a whole lot of anything, the deck was stacked against them, and that's just not fair for them. But you want to know what? That wasn't the game right there. What was the game was UCLA going 7 for 32 from three-point land. And that's not the more interesting thing. LSU only made 2 threes. They only jacked up 5 threes on the night, or on the day, because this was a morning matchup. LSU also shot a little over 45% from the field, while UCLA only shot a little over 35% from the field. They were 25 for 70 from the field. 70 field goal attempts. 70. And they only made 25. I get it, that's tired legs, but still, that's just unfortunate for UCLA. So, unfortunately for UCLA, their season came to an end in the Sweet 16. But I will just say, they're right there. And I hate to say this for UCLA fans, but I kind of figured UCLA was going to lose in the round of 32. Or not the round of 32, the round of 16, or the Sweet 16. Why? Because LSU is still pretty darn good. And I feel UCLA might be a year away from actually competing. They've been ranked as high as number 2, and I will just say, for them to have that success, it's still quite amazing. So I really don't think, and they also had a lot of roster turnover, especially midway through the season, where they had one player quit because of mental health and whatnot. I think they had one other player not be eligible to play in the NCAA tournament, which I don't want to get into the details, but I just want to say shame on whoever disallowed that. So I think it was a successful season for UCLA, and for anyone else that thinks otherwise, screw you. So that leaves only one Southern California team representing the NCAA men's and women's basketball tournament left, and that is USC. And they wound up prevailing in the Sweet 16, 74-70. Now, I have USC going all the way to the Final Four, but I think it's going to be really tough for USC, because I don't even remember the last time they played UConn. It had to have been like forever ago, but they're seeking their first Final Four appearance since, I want to say, maybe the 1994. And in the matchup against Baylor, they were actually down they were down 4 going into the fourth quarter as Juju Watkins did not have a great shooting night, but she came up big when it mattered most, which was the fourth quarter. She was 8 for 28 from the field, which is a little above 25%. But she had 30 points. She was 12 for 13 from the charity stripe. She also got some backup from Rhea Marshall, who had 11 points and 16 boards. And Mackenzie Forbes had 14 points. So, again, for USC, they need to have everyone contribute and help out Juju Watkins. If Juju Watkins is having to carry that team all by her little self, it's going to end poorly for SC. And thankfully, Juju Watkins had enough juju in the tank to basically will USC to the win. It just goes to show how valuable she is. And if USC wants to take down UConn, which now has Paige Buchers, healthy as can be, they need to really play. They need to play above their competition. Now, UConn is a storied program, as we all know. But that should not scare USC, as USC has a lot to play for. They're playing in Portland, Oregon, as opposed to playing at Galen Center. But I will say for USC, I think they've had a fantastic season. If they could beat UConn, they could assert themselves as one of the top teams in NCAA women's basketball. And the fact that they have a chance at getting to the Final Four would be amazing. But I will just say they have to play up to their competition. They got to play really well. If they don't, then this could basically be the end. And all eyes are going to be on Paige Buchers of UConn and Juju Watkins of USC. Like, they need to get Rhea Marshall and Mackenzie Forbes more involved. They got to get everybody involved. If they can do that, then honestly, they're set for they could be set for a trip to the Final Four. But this matchup is going to be tomorrow at 6 p.m. No, there is not April Fool's. I only wish it wasn't at 6 p.m. because I'm doing set point that night. But anyway, for USC, I will just say this is going to be the big test. I knew Baylor was going to be a test. I kind of knew Kansas was going to be a little test. But now they got UConn. I actually didn't expect UConn to get this far. I thought it was going to be Ohio State based on how they've played. But Ohio State kind of got left at the harbor in I think it was in the round of 32. It was either that or the Sweet 16. Regardless, USC has a lot on their dish, but I'm confident in them. So let's go USC, fight the F on, and go bring us home a win. All right, let's jump on into the NBA because there are actually matchups going on this beautiful Easter Sunday as the Lakers are taking on the Nets, and they're up 31-11 at the end of the first quarter. Now, where was this Lakers team against Brooklyn back in late January? Anyway, so the Lakers, they actually had won 5 in a row. So on their massive road trip, they kicked off the road trip on March 18th against the Atlanta Hawks, winning that one 136-105. Then Friday, March 22nd, they beat the Sixers 101-94. Then not today, but last Sunday, they took down the Indiana Pacers 150-145. Then this past Tuesday, they took down the Milwaukee Bucks in double overtime 128-124. And then this past Wednesday, they took down the Memphis Grizzlies 136-124. Now, the win over the Bucks was quite significant because the Lakers were down by as many as 18. And if I recall correctly, they didn't have LeBron James. Anthony Davis put on his big boy pants, and he had 34 points, which I thought was pretty darn impressive. So it was great that the Lakers wound up winning that one. They also didn't have Anthony Davis against the Grizzlies, but LeBron James came back for that one, and the Lakers wound up beating the Grizzlies. Unfortunately, the 5-game winning streak came to an end this past Friday as they lost to the Indiana Pacers. This one actually came on the road. So their road trip started when they took on Milwaukee, and then they continued on. They played Memphis, and then they played Indiana. Lost to the Pacers 109-90. Currently, right now, like I said, the Lakers are up 31-11 against the Brooklyn Nets. They have 2 more games left in this little road trip as they've got the Toronto Raptors on Tuesday, and then they've got the Washington Lizards on Wednesday. I'm sorry, Mike, but hopefully the Lakers don't play down to the competition of the Wizards. That would be a massive mistake. But after that little road trip, the Lakers have the Cleveland Cavaliers this upcoming Saturday. The next Sunday, they host the Minnesota Timberwolves. Then next Tuesday, they have the Golden State Warriors, which that's going to be big, especially for play-in playoff bracket scenarios. And then next Friday, they have the Memphis Grizzlies in Memphis. And then 2 weeks from today, they close out the regular season against the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans. So this is getting really dicey for the Lakers as they're actually 9th in the Western Conference standings. Fortunately, they're a game and a half ahead of Golden State, and they are 2.5 games ahead of Houston. But Houston is not too far. They've actually won 11 straight. So if anything, the Lakers really got to hit the gas and leave Golden State and Houston in the dust. They're 1.5 games back of Sacramento and 2 games back of Phoenix, and they're also 3.5 games back of Dallas, who is getting closer to clinching a spot in the playoffs. Notice how I said playoffs and not play-in. But it is what it is, and hopefully for the Lakers' sake, they can get to that number 8 position, because if they get the number 8 spot, then they get to face, I think they face Phoenix in Phoenix for a spot at the 7th seed, which, if that's the case, then that would be much more ideal than being the 8th seed and facing Minnesota. I mean, last year, remember, the Lakers were the 7th seed, and they wound up taking down Memphis in 6. But that was because Memphis had a whole lot of immaturity on their team, so you know what I mean. So that's that for the Lakers right there. Going to the Clippers. All right, now I've been basically talking about this for quite a bit. The Clippers have an identity problem. So after they took down the Portland Trailblazers twice, following their loss to the Atlanta Hawks, they actually lost 2 in a row. They lost to the Philadelphia 76ers on last Sunday, 125-117. Or that was last Friday. Last Sunday they lost to the Philadelphia 76ers, 121-107. And then they lost to... Yeah, they lost... Last Sunday they lost to the Sixers, 121-107. And then last Monday, they lost to the Indiana Pacers 133-116. Fortunately for the Clippers, they were able to eke out a win over the Philadelphia 76ers last Wednesday as they wound up winning 108-107. I admit to all the Sixers fans that are PO'd at the Clippers for stealing that win, I admit the Clippers kind of got away with that one. I did not expect them to win that one, especially with all of the BS non-calls against Philadelphia. And then last Friday, the Clippers edged out the Orlando Magic 100-97. That sounds like the old the old days of NBA where defense was played. And then currently right now, the Clippers are up 49-39 against the Charlotte Hornets. And then for the month of April, Tuesday, the Clippers are in Northern California to take on the Sacramento Kings. Thursday, the Clippers host the Denver Nuggets. Friday, the Clippers host the Utah Jazz. Sunday, the Clippers host the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, they face the Suns. Next Tuesday, they're in Arizona to take on Phoenix. And then next Wednesday, the Clippers host the Suns. And then next Friday, the Clippers host the Utah Jazz. And then 2 weeks from today, they close out the regular season against the Houston Rockets, which is fighting for its playoff lives, or play-in lives. So currently right now for the Clippers, they are 4th in the Western Conference. Now, I will just say they're a distant 5th. They're distant 5 games back from Minnesota, Oklahoma City, and Denver, which I still think the Clippers are still susceptible to losing in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, they obviously have their stars healthy for the most part in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, thankfully for their sake. But I will just say, I just feel they don't have the answer for some of the better teams in the league. But I will just say, at least the Clippers are shattering expectations. The fact that the Clippers are in the driver's seat of winning their division, not that that really matters, but the fact that the Clippers are the best team from their division amongst the Suns, Kings, Lakers, and Warriors, I still think that's kind of an accomplishment. I was one of the people that said the Clippers, I don't know if they'll do good this year just because, well, for starters, they have the inconsistency of dealing with Kawhi Leonard's injury history and Paul George's injury history, and then eventually having the Clipper curse on their backs, which, unfortunately, I don't need to get into that. But regardless, for the Clippers, I will just say, I think they're still having a fantastic season, and it's only a matter of time before they clinch a spot in the playoffs. It's hard to believe that they haven't, because normally 46 wins gets you into the playoffs, but this is the new modern day NBA, as the Clippers, even 41 plus wins does not get you into the playoffs right away. And it also kind of shows how competitive the Western Conference is and how you have the play-in tournament and whatnot, so what can you do? All right, but that's that for the Clippers right there. I actually was going to talk about USC. Now, for USC, they wound, as we all know, they unfortunately did not make the NCAA. They did not make the NCAA tournament, but according to Rodney Peete of AM 570 LA Sports, Andy Enfield, the head coach of USC men's basketball, is actually leaving USC and will be going to SMU to be their men's basketball coach. And this was kind of a shocker just because he did get a contract extension all the way to, I think, 2028 or 2029. But Andy Enfield is gone. And, well, for starters, that's kind of a bummer for USC, because they've got a lot of good recruits coming in, and what's going to happen with all those current players? Are they going to stay, or are they going to follow Enfield? So Enfield is going to Dallas to be the head coach of SMU's men's basketball team. So I will say for Andy Enfield, I wish him nothing but the best. I only wish that he could have guided USC to greater heights, especially since this year was such a high expectations year, and then unfortunately they got nipped by the injury bug. Isaiah Collier was out for like 4 weeks. They had that slide in the Pac-12, and then eventually we saw their true potential, and then Arizona in the Pac-12 tournament basically just ended it for them. So for USC, they're on the hunt for a new head coach. So I kind of wonder who would be the best candidate. I don't think they're going to have Dan Monson. As good of a coach as he is, I don't think USC would want to hire him right away. They need to hire a blue collar guy. They need to hire someone who's going to guide USC like Andy Enfield did in the post-COVID season. So all in all, for USC men's hoops, it's going to be an interesting process, and I don't have any nominees for the time being. But we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll get like an NBA retread coach, though I don't think an NBA coach is going to take a pay cut. A former NBA coach is going to take a pay cut to basically be a college coach. But we'll see what happens. And then the big thing for USC men's basketball is they actually need to keep their other coaching staff, like Eric Mobley and whatnot, just because they can't afford to lose those guys. Otherwise, all of the recruits that are going to come to USC, they're going to leave, and then the players on the current USC roster are going to want to transfer out. Now, I wonder why Andy Enfield left for SMU. It could be because USC is going to the Big Ten, but SMU is going to the ACC, and if we recall correctly, the ACC is still pretty darn good in men's basketball, as you've got Duke and NC State, which one of them is actually going to the Final Four. And then you had Clemson going all the way to the Elite Eight before losing to Alabama. So enjoy the ACC, Andy Enfield. I wish but for real, I do wish Andy Enfield nothing but the best going forward. All right, but that's going to do it for the NBA and USC basketball portion of the show. When we come back, we'll have some MLS, NWSL, NHL discussion, and some MLB. I forgot it. We have to include the MLB, even though I'm not looking forward to the Angels and whatnot. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's up, sports fans? You're listening to IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your favorite West Coast Wisconsinite, Bernie Bango, and if you're a cheesehead, come listen to my show, Big Cheese Sports, where we road trip around America's Dairyland, previewing, reviewing, predicting, debating, and digging into all that is Wisconsin sports at the college and pro levels. Join me on IE Sports Radio, Sundays at 1 p.m. Central Standard. Bernie out.
What's good, everyone? It's Drewski, the host of Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. On this station, we cover everything in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. From we cover the Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Wings, Texas Rangers, TCU, SMU, we cover it all right here every Wednesdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you stay live with me on the Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey there, sports fans. Are you looking for a sports show that maybe isn't 100% about sports?
Then you might want to check out the Sports Couple Perspectives right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Most sports shows cover only scores and stats, and while we're not opposed to that, we dig a little deeper into sports issues and some of the hottest topics in athletics.
In addition to sports, we take a journey through my neck of the woods, pop culture, with movie reviews of both sports and non-sports films.
Speaking of pop culture, make sure to participate in our game nights, where we quiz each other on our specialties, and you, the listeners, can win IE Sports Radio apparel.
We always have a great time learning more about each other's worlds, one show at a time.
So join us each week on the Sports Couple Perspectives, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Teran Rodriguez here, giving you more SoCal sports action for about another 30-ish minutes before we keep the seat and mic warm for Davidson Crooks and Darius Locke of Fast Break. Alright, so let's discuss a little bit of MLB as, well, the Padres and the Dodgers already had their opening day. But the Angels, on the other hand, they actually opened up the season against the Baltimore Orioles, or as Larry B., the founder of IE Sports Radio, would call them, the Oreos. And long story short, the Angels' pitching is still the same as always. It sucks. The Angels wound up losing its opening day game against Baltimore 11-3 on Thursday. And then yesterday, being Saturday, they lost to the Orioles again, 13-4. And then the Angels wound up beating the Orioles today, 4-1, which, that's a good thing. So tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the Angels are back in action when they play the Miami Marlins. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, after their day off, they host the Boston Red Sox. Which, I mean, for the Angels, my expectations for this season are, I don't expect them to be great. I don't expect them to compete for a playoff spot. I mean, you look at the AL West. Texas Rangers, the reigning World Series champions. The Houston Astros, even though they're 0-4, they're still up there. Like, this slow start isn't going to define them. The Seattle Mariners, as much as it pains me to say this, and I have a lot of followers, or I have a good amount of followers on my personal account that like the Seattle Mariners, they're probably going to be up there in talent as well. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Angels, but if I had to guess, I would say that they're probably not going to make the playoffs. So as for the Dodgers, the Seoul series between them and the Padres didn't really go as planned. So after they won their first game 5-2 in the Seoul series, they wound up losing the second game of the Seoul series 15-11, splitting the series between them and the San Diego Padres. Now, back in California, they wound up taking on the St. Louis Cardinals in a 4-game series. So Thursday, they kicked off the series with a 7-1 win over the Cardinals, and then Friday, they beat the Cardinals 6-3. Yesterday, however, was a stinging loss as they wound up losing in 10 innings, 6-5. And right now, being 4 p.m. Pacific time, they're actually taking on the St. Louis Cardinals on ESPN on Sunday Night Baseball. Makes me wish I'd gotten some hot dogs to cook. Anyway, so the Dodgers are back in action after today's matchup tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday when they host the San Francisco Giants. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they hit the road to the Windy City to take on the Chicago Cubs, which, as for the Dodgers, as I've mentioned, my expectations for them are if they don't win the World Series or at least make the World Series, then honestly, it's a bust. They have all sorts of talent. They've spent over $10 billion, if not pretty much, or actually they spent over $10 million, or at the very least $1 billion in terms of getting free agents. They have to at least make the playoffs and then go farther than the second round. because the past 2 years losing to NL West foes is quite ridiculous. So for the Dodgers, this is basically World Series or bust for them. And then as for the Padres, after the Seoul series, they wound up splitting with the San Francisco Giants. They won the first game on Thursday, 6-4. Wound up losing the second game on Friday, 8-3. And then yesterday they lost to the Giants 9-6. And then today, the Padres wound up beating the Giants 13-4, salvaging a split, which is good. So the Padres are back in action tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday when they host the St. Louis Cardinals. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they're heading down to San Francisco to take on the San Francisco Giants. Now, for the Padres, last year I didn't really have the biggest expectations just because Fernando Tatis Jr. was suspended as well as injured. But this year I have some decent expectations. Yes, they lost Blake Snell to the San Francisco Giants. But I will just say, I really think that the Padres still do have some expectations. I don't really expect them to be too big of a contender, but considering there's a lot of good talent in the National League altogether, you've got the Dodgers, you've got the Atlanta Braves, the Arizona Cardinals, or no, not the Arizona Cardinals, the Arizona Diamondbacks are improved. Yeah. The Milwaukee Brewers are also up there, so all in all, for the Padres, it's basically going to be a wild card, or they're going to just miss out on the playoffs. Last year, the Padres were lucky to finish 500 at 81-81, but I will also just say it's fortunate that they were able to get some of their footing back before the end of the season. But I expect the Padres to be a wild card team this year. Do I expect them to go far? I don't know. I don't think so, but time will tell. Jen B pops to the chat room. She says, "Hey, Teran, happy Easter." Thank you, Jen. Happy Easter to you, too. So, all in all, that's going to do it for the MLB. It's very early, so remember, the old saying goes, the MLB isn't a marathon, the MLB is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So, teams are going to basically have some rust, but it's all about getting hot when it truly matters the most. Now, as for the MLS, so LAFC has really been on the struggle bus as of late. Which, yeah, last year's Western Conference champion has really had it tough, as last Saturday they wound up beating Nashville 5-0, which is great. They got their first win of the season, but they followed that up yesterday with a 3-2 loss, which is super unfortunate. And you know what didn't help is that David Martinez got red carded after LAFC went up 2-1, and then I'm not even gonna try to pronounce this guy on Colorado's name, but LAFC just has been a little bit on the struggle bus as of late, which is sucky, but it is what it is. You gotta take the bad with the good. They only have one win, which is just unfortunate. But it says here that LAFC has 2 wins. What? Hello? Oh, they beat Seattle in the first game of the season. I forgot February. February seems like forever ago. Anyway, so LAFC is back in action when they play in El Tráfico, let alone they host El Tráfico against the LA Galaxy, which... Well, for starters, they beat the Seattle Sounders yesterday 1-0, and they also beat Sporting KC 3-2. And believe it or not, I gotta tell y'all this, I didn't think I'd be uttering these words, but the Galaxy are atop the Western Conference. I never thought I'd see the day that the Galaxy, which was such a train wreck yesterday, or not yesterday, a train wreck last year with Bob Klein and whatnot, they're now atop the Western Conference. Stop the count. I don't care what it takes. Stop the count. The Galaxy are the best team in the Western Conference. Just end the season right there and give the Galaxy the Western Conference trophy. Okay, but jokes aside, the Galaxy being the best team in the Western Conference is still pretty impressive. Even though they actually have not lost a match, which is pretty darn good if you ask me. I think they might be... They're one of 3 teams that has not lost a match. The other is the Philadelphia Union, and then you have FC Cincinnati. You know? Everyone else has lost at least one match. So like I mentioned with the Galaxy, or with LAFC, the Galaxy are back in action when they hit the road to BMO Stadium to take on LAFC in El Tráfico, which I think should be nationally televised. But honestly, El Tráfico is going to be a barn burner. It always is. The fans are so rowdy. I hope they're not like too rowdy to the point where they're throwing like debris onto the field, which would be so sucky. But yeah, El Tráfico is always fun and competitive and spirited from the fans' perspectives, and it's always a nice rivalry. I mean, it's not as like intense as like maybe FC Cincinnati and like Columbus Crew or whoever Columbus Crew's rival is, which I imagine is going to be FC Cincinnati, but it's always good to see the Galaxy and LAFC just battle it out in a barn burner. And who knows, maybe LAFC can use that as their footing to try to get back on track. But time will tell. It's still pretty early in the season, in the MLS season, so I wouldn't panic if I'm an LAFC fan. If they continue this inconsistency, then maybe I would be panicking. Alright, but that's going to do it for the MLS portion of the show. Jumping over to some NWSL. So the NWSL is still kind of in its infancy stage of the season. Starting off with Angel City FC. Yesterday they wound up losing to the Kansas City Current 4-2. Unfortunately, they actually were down quite a bit. They were down 3-1 at one point. They got to 3-2. And then unfortunately, they thought they had the equalizer at 3-3, but sadly, they wound up according to VAR, it wound up basically being disallowed. The goal was disallowed because of offsides, which really sucks. But it is what it is. The Kansas City Current are pretty darn good. I hate how it has to be Kansas City, though. Like, Kansas City needs anything more to win, especially with stinking Taylor Swift and whatnot. Anyway, so Angel City FC is still winless through its first 3 games of the season as they hit the road to the Windy City to take on the Chicago Red Stars? Yes, the Chicago Red Stars this Saturday. So the Angel City is one of 2 teams that they're actually one of 4 teams that have yet to win, but they're still pretty much in the cellar of the NWSL standings. Now for Wave FC, they actually picked up their first win of the season when they took down Seattle 1-0. So Seattle is actually an expansion team. They're the Seattle Reign FC, which I think is pretty cool. And they actually got the game-winning goal in 8 minutes past stoppage time, or 8 minutes of stoppage time when Emily Van Egmond scored, and they wound up winning that one. So honestly, good for them. And that, if I recall correctly, that is their first win of the season. They actually lost their first game of the season as they lost to the Kansas City Current 2-1. Again, Kansas City seems to have the answer for SoCal teams, which does not make me happy. Anyway, so Sophia Jacobson scored in the 17th minute, and Izzy Rodriguez wound up scoring in the 44th minute for Kansas City Current. It was 1-1 at halftime, and then Loao Labonta scored a penalty kick for Kansas City in the 71st minute. So unfortunately for Wave FC, they wound up losing 2-1. But at least they have their first win of the season against Seattle, as they're back in action this Saturday when they hit the road to Louisville to take on Racing Louisville FC. And yes, that is pretty much correct. Yeah, I almost did that without having to take a peek at what their correct vernacular is. I knew it was Racing something, but I digress. But again, just like the MLS season and like the MLB season, NWSL is still in the infancy of its regular season, so I think in like a few more months or so, or a few more weeks, then we'll start to wonder if we should start being more concerned about Angel City and Wave FC. But I digress. All right, so onward to some NHL, and there was only one game that happened in the NHL today, and that was the Anaheim Ducks. Of course, they had to pick the Ducks to play the Vancouver Canucks, and the Canucks, in not so surprising fashion, they wound up taking down Anaheim 3-2. Believe it or not, Anaheim was down 2-0 going into the final period. They scored 2 straight, and it was 2-2, but unfortunately, with about 2 minutes and change remaining, Vancouver scored the equalizer, and sadly, Vancouver wound up winning. It's been rough times for the Ducks as of late, as they lost to the Edmonton Oilers yesterday, 6-1. Thursday, they lost to the Seattle Kraken 4-2. Tuesday, they lost to the Seattle Kraken 4-0. And then last Sunday, they lost to Tampa Bay in overtime, 3-2. And then the previous Thursday, they beat the Chicago Blackhawks 4-0. I already mentioned this to y'all, but Anaheim is eliminated from the playoffs. They're one of 2 teams that's eliminated from in the West. Well, actually, one of 4 teams that's eliminated from the West. And then they're one of 2 teams from the Pacific Division that is eliminated from the playoffs. And that the other team being San Jose, which honestly, that's not surprising. But, yeah, it's tough times for the Ducks. And it's another season where the Ducks can't do squat diddly, and it makes me mad. Now, as for the Kings, yesterday they wound up losing to Calgary 4-2, and they also lost to Edmonton on Thursday 4-1. Last Monday, they beat the Vancouver Canucks 3-2, and then this past Saturday, they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in overtime 4-3. So currently where the Kings stand, I think they should be almost a lock to make the playoffs. They would probably make it in as the final team from the Pacific Division, as they're 14 points ahead of Calgary and Seattle, who are both tied for 5th. And they're not too far back from Vegas, as they're only 3 points back of Vegas, and they're 7 points back of Edmonton. So the Kings just have to play more consistent, and if they do, then they might have a shot. Tomorrow, the Kings head to Winnipeg to take on the Jets. Wednesday, on national TV, being TNT, the Kings host the Kraken. The day after that, they head down to Northern California to take on San Jose. Saturday, the Kings host the Canucks. And then next Tuesday, the Ducks host the Kings. Which, man, that's going to be tough for Ducks fans to stomach. Because the Kings are basically should be in the playoffs unless they have a massive collapse. Because if I recall correctly, the Kings have 9 games remaining, and unless they just lose all of them, and then the Canucks or Kraken wind up winning all their games, then I just see the Kings making it as into the playoffs. Would they have a tough time against the Canucks? Probably. But honestly, I think it's doable for them to make the playoffs. At least get to the playoffs, Kings. The Ducks can't do anything right, so there you have it right there. Alright, but that is that for some NHL news. There should be some Chargers news, and there should be some, there was some Chargers news that, came about. They actually just officially hired, they just officially signed Denzel Perryman, a former Charger. So, yeah, getting Denzel Perryman is great because he has that familiarity. And now the Chargers have 2 former San Diego Chargers players on their team, so instead of just the one being Joey Bosa. Also, the Chargers signed Christian Fulton, a cornerback from the Tennessee Titans. And he was actually one of the better free agents for one of the top free agents for the in terms of NFL free agency. So honestly, I will say that's a good get considering the Chargers have one of the. I mean, they don't have the worst cornerback room, but losing Michael Davis doesn't help. The whole J.C. Jackson experiment blew up in their face. So that only leaves like Asante Samuel Jr., who's playing on a rookie contract, and I think it's Jasir Taylor. Yeah, Jasir Taylor. He's probably going to slip into that cornerback position, and with Christian Fulton having that veteran cornerback experience, I think the Chargers' cornerback room is a little bit better. I still am mad about that whole J.C. Jackson signing. It was supposed to work wonders for the Chargers, but now it just blew up in their face. And what's sad is that, unfortunately, the J.C. Jackson thing, returning to New England, didn't really pan out for him as well. And then he got released by the New England Patriots pretty much at the end of the season. So that is basically that for the Chargers right there. And then jumping to the Rams, they actually signed a cornerback of their own, Tre'Davious White, a former Buffalo Bill. And honestly, when he visited the Rams, it was just good vibes only. It was just basically good vibes all around. And according to Teran Rodriguez, the Rams beat reporter for The Atlantic. So all in all, the Rams really needed to get a cornerback. Obviously, the whole Jalen Ramsey thing didn't work out, and he got traded to Miami for practically nothing. But getting Tre'Davious White, that's a great deal. It's a 1-year deal, but honestly, it's still a feather in their cap. It's still a feather in the Rams' cap, and honestly, I definitely think that the Rams can build off this, and them having that veteran cornerback presence is going to do wonders. And heck, if the Rams want to take another cornerback, then that corner, whether it's like Kool-Aid McKinstry or whatnot, I use Kool-Aid McKinstry as an example just because he has probably the best name in that draft. Kool-Aid. His name is literally Kool-Aid McKinstry. That sounds like a Key and Peele name. But the Rams still, I think, need cornerback, maybe an edge rusher, defensive lineman, maybe an offensive lineman, just because they've had some comings and goings and whatnot. But I will say this for the Rams, I definitely think that they are still in a good spot. I will say they should make the playoffs, and if the whole pattern, like in terms of like making and missing the playoffs ever since joining LA holds up, then we could see them in the Super Bowl. But time will tell. It's going to feel weird seeing the Rams actually with a first-round pick. And then watch as it's drafted. They trade it for like second, third round, fourth round picks and whatnot. All right, but that's going to do it for the NFL portion of the show. Just a brief little synopsis of that. There hasn't really been too much big news in terms of NFL free agency for the Chargers or Rams. I mean, the Chargers obviously had that salary cap hell that they were in terms of like trading away Mike Williams or trading away Keenan Allen, and then also getting rid of some of their other players like Mike Williams and Michael Davis and whatnot. And then eventually they restructured the contract of Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, which is good. Marcus thinks he's so clever. He says, without AD, good luck, LOL. Yeah, I get it. Aaron Donald left, but it was bound to happen eventually. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, honestly, if you remember the pattern, ever since 2026, the Rams missed the playoffs, then made the playoffs, then made the Super Bowl, and then missed the playoffs, made the playoffs, and made the Super Bowl, and wound up winning. And then 2 years ago, they missed the playoffs. This past season, they made the playoffs. So, year 9 in LA for the Rams, or year 9 back in LA for the Rams. Could we see them back in the Super Bowl? We'll see. Not trying to like discredit like teams like the Lions or the Niners. But I'm just saying that pattern looks very enticing if you ask me. But time will tell when it comes to the NFL and whatnot. There's plenty of NFL free agency left, so we'll see. All right, but that's going to do it for the NFL portion of the show. So before we get on out of here, we got to go over Dum Dum of the Week. Dum Dum of the Week is basically an award I like to give out to those that do something or say something dumb, whether it's on social media, whether it's in person, or anything of that sort. But you know what? Today is Easter, so I'm actually going to forego giving out Dum Dum of the Week. I know some of y'all are going to be disappointed, but I actually want to end the show with just positivity and whatnot. And wish you all a happy Easter, and I hope everyone is having a great and happy and healthy Easter. From where I'm at, I'm thankful I didn't have to work today. So I will just say I am glad I didn't have to work, and I'm glad I didn't have to work. I'm glad I was able to do the show on Sunday, which maybe I might have to move the show to, unless, of course, I'm able to wiggle in a quick SoCal Supreme Sports Show in, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I want to end the show off on a positive note. As much as y'all want to hear me scream and talk about someone doing something dumb, I just can't. Just because it's Easter and we need to have the positivity. But I can assure you, next show, whenever that may be, it'll basically be we'll be bringing back Dum Dum of the Week. And no one is going to be safe from Dum Dum of the Week. No one is going to be safe. So I will just say, I really want to spread the happiness, and I hope everyone here is doing well. And I'm thankful that I'm able to do the SoCal Supreme Sports Show today. I actually was thinking of just taking the week off, but I told Larry I was going to do it. Like, I wanted to do it Thursday, but J-Man got to that 6 p.m. slot time before I did. Which it is what it is. And then I thought I was going to do it Saturday, but I forgot UC Irvine and CSUN were playing in men's volleyball. So it was basically do it tonight or don't do it at all. And I'm certain I'll be able to do SoCal next week. If not, I'll have to move it to Sunday. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Unless I say otherwise, I will be back next week. But right now, it is time for me to get on out of here, because I got me some Easter celebrating to do by myself. Yeah, dig! Thank you everyone for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Ralph Cleese popped in the chat room. He said, Teran, happy Easter. Hope the show is going well listening in. I appreciate it, Ralph. Shout out to the chat room as well, in addition to Ralph. Shout out to Jen B, Marcus Los Great, Mike Pat, for all tuning in. I really do appreciate you all tuning in. It really means a lot. It really means the world. I love y'all. And Marcus said it best. Salute. And Jen B said, great show, Teran. Happy Easter again. Blessings to you and yours. Same to you, Jen B. And same to everyone that listens to the show. I imagine SoCal will be back next Sunday just because I have next Sunday off. And Friday and Saturday, UC Irvine and Hawaii play. But we'll see. Maybe I can do a quick show on Thursday. But time will tell. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself a great rest of the week. Enjoy the rest of your Easter. Don't eat too much chocolate. I will see you all tomorrow for Set Point. Have yourself a great rest of the week. And remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace and blessings to everybody. Happy Easter.